Great news to hear, though, is that travel condition still looks really good across the area, and we're not expecting much trouble. Now, this hasn't always been the case. When we've been talking about Christmas weather, it's always, of course, an important time to watch. In past years, we've seen some stuff that has been fairly nasty in a few cases. We're especially talking about within the past few decades. In fact, looking back at the 1960s. In your Weather Rewind, at least to start, we're going to cover a few Christmas years here. We did have a snowstorm that moved through and caused some pretty significant snow. Now, we did have what was eventually determined to be the whitest Christmas in history at that time. And yeah, that did cause some traffic trouble across parts of the state. Snowfall fortunately became lighter by the time we got toward Christmas Day, but still, highways were poor, and this storm system actually caused a lot of trouble. You can see that there was, well, some pretty heavy and hefty conditions to contend with. Blizzard conditions continued as traffic tried to head out for the holiday. Many vehicles were abandoned. In fact, the Des Moines police said almost 10,000 vehicles were abandoned during that time. Yeah, that's not necessarily what you want to see as you're heading into a very busy travel period. Unfortunately, some folks had to leave their vehicles. They were so stuck they had to run to nearby farmhouses out in rural areas and seek shelter there. Now, 15 people died in the storm in the state because of the cold conditions and the very difficult travel. Many more were injured in crashes. And so that's why hopefully we've learned some lessons from a system like that. Now, we did see some very bitter cold in 1983 leading up to the holiday of Christmas. We also saw blizzard conditions at times that caused travel to be very difficult then as well, and some wind chills falling well below zero and temperatures staying below zero. We saw an average temperature across the state of 12.5 degrees below zero. That's highs and lows across a 3-day period. That's very cold, especially this early in the season. KCRG TV9's Lisa Scott reported on the trouble that travelers encountered.
It was a fierce struggle for Iowans today, and the weather almost always won. With winds gusting from 20 to 40 miles an hour, the wind chill factor for much of Iowa dipped to as low as 90 degrees below zero. Those temps, added to extremely limited visibility, brought travel to a virtual standstill. Meanwhile, the Iowa Highway Patrol urged travelers to stay put in what the National Weather Service called a life-threatening situation. Perhaps the worst news for many came when area churches were forced to cancel services on this Christmas Eve. St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Marion was one of the casualties due to furnace problems.
It's about 40 degrees in the nave of the church. It's a disappointment because people love the Christmas services with the traditional carols and so on.
This weather has undoubtedly caused many such disappointments, but staying inside is the best answer in a situation where it is better to be safe than sorry. Michelle Vonderhaar, TV9 Eyewitness News.
And it wasn't the only trouble that we saw in the 80s. Just a year before that, we had more trouble on the backside of Christmas. Now, wrapping up Christmas week, a lot of folks do stay a while at their family's place, and that can lead to some trouble if those systems arrive. Then a really intense storm brought actually quite a bit of different weather to Iowa on December 27th, 1982. We saw severe weather along the Mississippi River. Wind damage brought down a radio tower near Muscatine. Other wind gusts with this system recorded about 90 miles per hour. Now on the backside, the cold side of the system, freezing rain turned to snow, accumulated to at least a foot, and then wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour led toward gusts, or not gusts, but rather drifts of 6 to 10 feet of snow. And of course, that did a number on travel that year too for folks trying to get home from the holiday. Now this time, KCRG TV9's Michelle Vonderhaar has the report.
Much like this scene in Minneapolis, icy roads and huge drifts paralyzed the northwest part of Iowa today and left many towns without electricity. All interstates in western Iowa had blowing and drifting snow. Some were down to one lane, and a few roads in the extreme western part of the state were blocked. The eastern part of the state was a little luckier. We didn't have the snow, but we did have the winds. And if you tried to drive today, you may have had some of the same problems that truck driver Tom Larson encountered.
It's just terrible. I got a 44-foot trailer and empty. It's just, you look in the mirror and it looks like it's going sideways down the road.
Many buses were canceled because of the weather.
If you're traveling west today, you were affected by the snow. Buses headed in that direction were only going as far as Des Moines. Now, buses coming in from the east were affected by the wind. Most of them were running a half an hour late.
And of course, all the wind provided for a hefty wind chill of 15 below zero. Lisa Scott, TV9 Eyewitness News.
Now, when we look back to recent Christmases, we've been in better shape. The recent history involves temperatures, well, in the 30s primarily. This is over the course of the last 70 years or so, but we've seen days that have been above 50. We've seen plenty that have been below 10. In fact, the side that is more favored is the cold one. Now, in terms of our warmest Christmas, we actually experienced this in a good portion of eastern Iowa just a couple years ago. 2019 was 58 in Cedar Rapids, 59 in Waterloo. It's the kind of weather you could go outside and enjoy. It was actually kind of sunny too, which for this time of year can be hard to come by, which we're going to find out in the next couple of days. And we were very cold not long before that either. The year 2000 ranks as the coldest in Cedar Rapids and Waterloo, with Waterloo reaching a low of 29 degrees below zero. The others were set in the 1800s in Dubuque at 19 below and Iowa City at 19 below in 1921. So we can get both extremes still this time of year in terms of the most amount of snow we've seen falling on Christmas Day. Well, we did get 7 inches of snow in Iowa City in 1909, and 1951 brought 7 inches of snow to the Waterloo area. Cedar Rapids and Dubuque a little bit less than that. This year, not expecting a repeat of that.